How big can I get my heart to be?
Thought Media Network proudly presents
How much love can I get flowing out of me?
The Real Talk Sisters. Deep, unfiltered, soulful conversations with Reverend Dr. Pjae Stanley, Reverend Kim Andrews, and Reverend Melinda Wood Allen.
How big can I get my heart to be?
Join us for Real Talk on Real Issues. Tuesdays, 2 p.m. Central, 1 o'clock Mountain. And now, let's join the Real Talk Sisters.
How big can I get my heart to be?
Hey, hello.
Hello, everyone.
How is
Hello.
How you guys doing?
I'm good.
Yeah.
There's the faintest tinge, hint that it might be autumn someday in Texas. It's not here. It's not tomorrow, but there's at least the belief that it's possible. Which
There's some hope.
Yeah,
There's some hope.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just any mind of hope. Yeah.
Yeah. So I start perking up when the really oppressive heat starts letting up. I always feel myself perking up, and I always go through this thing in August and September where I say, you should be more spiritual than this. Something like weather that you have no control of should not be able to have this much power over you. And then
how does the pep talk work? How does the pep talk work?
Yeah, not at all. And I think something else, and I think, no, it's not the weather. You're just depressed. And oh crap, what if it's always going to be this way? And then the moment there's a cool night, I go, I start breathing better. And I just get to face, I'm a fall and winter and spring person. I'm not.
How about that?
Yeah.
How about that? And that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm doing.
Good. And so we are the Real Talk Sisters. I am Reverend Pjae Stanley from Harmony Spiritual Center in Fort Worth.
And
Melinda.
I'm Reverend Melinda Wood Allen from the Church of One Love in Dallas.
And I am Kim Andrews, spiritual leader at Unity Saxe in Saxe, Texas. And it's good to be here.
It is so good to be here. Always good to be here. That's not telling what's going to fall out of our mouths. So I love it.
Yeah.
It's always an experience, a wonderful experience. Always.
It is.
So,
always something to take home, something rich.
Yeah.
Something rich.
Yeah. Something rich. Something, yeah. A new way to look at stuff. I love it.
So today you're talking about we were thinking this title, like this came from a talk that we were having where we said tolerance is a pretty low bar. Being able to tolerate other people is setting the bar pretty low. And so what we wanted to talk about today is going beyond tolerance, and what is beyond tolerance, and how
what is tolerance itself? What does even tolerance mean? Yeah.
And
what does it even mean?
Look like? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because to me, when I think of that word, it's a negative for me. It really is. It's a negative. It's not. It's because it is such a low bar. That to me, when I think of it, it's a negative. Surely we can, just waking up in the morning, we ought to be able to do better than this. Tolerate things.
It's better than intolerance. It's certainly better than intolerance. Yeah. But to tolerate something means to, in my view, it means to get yourself okay with the fact that it exists without having to have any approval or any good feelings about it, or spend any particularly positive energy or time or thought on it. Just like, okay, it exists, I'm going to let it exist, which is a lot better than in many times that we've lived in, and times that we are living in right now, where some people don't even want to tolerate that someone who thinks differently or looks different, or dresses differently, or uses a different pronoun, or lives in a different country. We don't even want to tolerate their existence. So tolerance is better than intolerance, but it's on the spiritual path. It's a really, really low bar. We're called to do more.
It's actually a few steps back from that, because I looked up the word. I love looking up.
Good for you.
Yeah, me too. I did too.
So on
What'd you find?
dictionary.com, it said to allow the existence, presence, practice, or act of without prohibition or hindrance, to permit something, which sounds a little arrogant, actually,
It
to
does, doesn't it?
endure without repugnance, to put up with. Um, and it also says, this is actually, they said, an obsolete definition, to experience, undergo, or sustain as pain or hardship. And it actually comes from the root of the word comes from to bear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To bear something.
Right.
And
Right.
we can tolerate a certain level of pain. We can tolerate a certain level of unpleasantness before we blow our stack. But to tolerate something it's a negative in that, not like negative it's bad, but it's a negative in that it's a something that it's not, rather than a something that it is.
Mhm.
You know, when I say something like, well, it is what it is, that's not tolerance, that's acceptance, which to me is a little higher than
Absolutely.
tolerance. You know what I mean? Because I accept it. It is what it is. It may not be my cup of tea, but it is what it is. And so I don't need to argue with it. I don't need to. There's nothing on my heart aching about it. And when I think about tolerance, it's a negative in that way, in that I tolerate it. So there's a hit on my heart. It's like, oh, I there's a well, just like you just said, I tolerate pain, and that's a really good to me definition of when you say you're tolerating it, then something is painful to you. Something is under like a pebble in your shoe. And so we really want to think of people or situations in a way that we have to tolerate it. I don't see how that makes our lives any better by tolerating things. You know?
I sometimes liken it to, like, if you have two boxers, prize fighters, and they're in the ring and they're in their opposite corners, but as soon as the bell rings, they come out fighting. So you're in the ring with them. I know you're my opponent. I'm in here because we're doing this dance together. And as soon as something happens, then all bets are off.
Right. And I'm coming out swinging. Swinging. Yes. Yeah, I like it. And so when you're tolerating it, you're in the corner, just waiting to jump up and start fighting.
That when you're, I read this book when I was a teenager called Summer of My German Soldier. It was I think it was like a Newbery Award winner. So maybe some people my age have heard of it, but it was about a little girl in rural South who came upon a German prisoner of war. It was set in the 40s, early 40s, a German prisoner of war who had escaped from a camp nearby and was living in her parents' barn. And she started sneaking him food. And she was like an adolescent girl and talking about how she thinks love is the best word in the world. And he said, I think maybe tolerance is, from his point of view, being conscripted to fight for a leader who would not tolerate the existence of certain people, to the point that he was trying to obliterate certain whole peoples, whole cultures, whole ideologies. Then from that point of view, tolerance is really great. And on a purely earthly plane, tolerance is way better than intolerance. But when we set ourselves on a spiritual path, we're rising above the earthly plane. We're understanding that life is more than what appears on this earth. And so that's where the bar is raised. So what is in this from me? Because I'm not doing anything if I'm just going to stand by and say, I guess you get to be who you are. I'm not going to kill you. I'm not going to obliterate you. Certainly better than obliterating you. But what's in it from me? Where's the positive? Where am I moving forward? Where am I?
Right. And the issue for me is that when you have a bar, it's like a high jumper. When you have a bar, often you miss it. So if tolerance is the bar, what happens when you miss it? Then what goes below? What's happening below tolerance? So I think tolerance. So tolerance is too low a bar that if you miss it, so you're not. So you're going to miss most times what you're aiming for, but you're trying to get close to what you're aiming for. And if tolerance is the only aim, you haven't gotten anywhere because you miss it. So that's why I think about tolerance in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just that's all. It's just such a low bar for humanity, and certainly for a spiritual realm. But even if you don't even think about spiritual realm, just on a human level, uh, you know, interacting with other people, you're coming to other people and going, I'm going to tolerate this nonsense, but only until you can figure out a way not to have to.
Yeah.
I don't know. Might be putting too much into it, but anyway, that's
So a next rung up from that might be to appreciate that there's a difference.
Yeah. Yes.
You don't have to
Appreciation and acceptance. Yeah.
But appreciate.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I don't know, it starts to get, so the question becomes, how then can you go beyond tolerance to actually appreciation? How do we get to a place where we can appreciate someone else's point of view, someone else being here, someone else being like what they do, having a different religion than you do, having a different point of view than you do? How can you then, how do we go there? And I guess maybe that's a little jump, maybe further down the road, we can talk about that. Yeah.
I would say, I just have to do that. I was that kid in school. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Curiosity. Curiosity.
Oh, my stars. Get curious.
We ask a question. We get curious about it. We investigate. Because what I know about humans is that humans are only able to other humans when we don't see them as human. The moment that we move somebody into the realm of human with me, not human away from me, but human with me, then we start to, we lose our ability to set ourselves apart from them. And the more deeply we know somebody, the harder it is to set them apart, the more likely it is that we can first appreciate the differences and then actually find the commonalities.
Yeah.
And the more commonalities we find, the more we're looking at us, not other.
Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of think that before we get to acceptance, we need to have a willingness to see that there's something more than our differences, and that there's something, and that something more is worth investigating, and that so that we can move maybe towards understanding. Because if you're stuck in it with tolerance, then there is no way forward. You're not looking for understanding. You're just saying,
you're not looking for it. That's the problem.
Just let you in the door, but stand by the door and just stay there. And I'm going to stay over here, and we're still going to be however far apart we are until one of us blinks.
Yeah, correct. And somebody's going to blink.
Nobody wants to blink. And the times when I've been tolerant of something, it's taken quite a bit of energy to open up and say, okay, I'm willing now to look at something different. I'm willing to not just let them in the door, but to take a deep breath, maybe smile. And I remember a good instance of this, when we had a schism, when we had a break at a church I was going to, there were new ministers. And there were some people who were still hanging around who didn't like the change. And there was some real ugliness there for a while coming from some people. They did not want to accept the new ministers. And it got bad. There was some real childish behavior. There was some real ugly things said. They were ignored. And so I knew that, I had my own feelings about things, but I also knew that I needed to rise above this other stuff that was happening, the ugly stuff that was happening. And I remember a moment on a Sunday morning before service, I saw the ministers come down the hall, and I remember people just turning and walking away from them, and specifically letting them know that they weren't going to speak to them. Just was terrible. And I remember
talking to you. Yeah.
It was so childish and so bad and so out of alignment with who we say we are.
Who we say we are. Right.
And so I saw them coming down the hallway. And so probably in about 10, 15 seconds to decide if I was going to do what others were going to do or if I was going to change, despite how I felt about what happened. I had to let go of my baggage around everything that had happened. And I remember them walking up to me, and they, it was almost like they were walking through a gauntlet. And they walked up to me, and I remember deciding, what are you going to do, Kim? What are you going to do? And I distinctly said, I can't look at myself if I do this the way others are doing. And I said, good morning. I'm doing fine. How are you today? And I walked in to the sanctuary with them. And then I let it go. I just I let it go, because that's the only way I could move forward. And what does it mean if I keep fighting this with others? And then I've lost myself. I've lost my integrity, not acting on what I believe, staying in alignment with that. Then I can't look at myself in the mirror at night when I go to bed, because I've said I'm this kind of person, and now I'm showing up as something different.
Yeah. So you have to re-examine who you say you are, as opposed to who you actually are.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're that kind of person, which I am, I can't. I think we all are. At some point, you have to own. Oh, you know what? I say this, but I keep showing up as that, and you just can't do it forever. You can do it for a while. You can fool yourself for a while, but at some point, you say, wait a minute, that is. I keep saying that, but I'm not. And so that's to me, that's humanity. It just you can't. And some people can. I mean, some people can live.
I think people can.
They can. Oh yeah, they can hide from their feelings. They can hide. And
they're bifurcating their own souls. They
really are. They really are
within themselves. And
it's
the opposite of integrity. Integrity is about integration. And when you have that divisiveness going on outside, there's no way you don't have it within you. You may fight to not look at it or be aware of it, but it's happening, and it affects. Yeah,
it does. It does. And so it comes to the point would be whether you want to live this world in truth with yourself or not. And the thing is, as we know as ministers, it's work all the time. It's always working on yourself all the time, because you come up against it. Just like you just said, Kim, who am I going to be today? Who am I going to be right now? Am I going to be myself? Or am I going to fall into whatever is going on here, which is not in alignment? But how many people actually think that? As they're going through the day, do they think about, this is who I am. I'm going to show up as who Pjae says Pjae is, and not, what the rest of the world thinks that Pjae should be, and get aligned with that. And that takes a lot of time, energy, and courage. Time, energy, and courage.
And I think there's another thing that happens, because I'm familiar with having known a lot of the players in that particular schism that I think you're talking about, Kim, that there are people who felt like what happened was literally wrong and they couldn't tolerate it. Well, if that's your true message inside yourself, then the answer is not to stay there and cause as much problem as possible, but to go, this is no longer for me. I'm not in alignment with it. And then to move on.
Yes.
Or change it from within by finding the love in the situation and working from there, which is what you chose to do. But there are too many people want to, well, I think this is wrong, and I want everybody to know that I think this is wrong.
Yeah.
So
I got to make a public statement about it.
Feel like crap, and make other people feel like crap, so that I can, because I think somehow I'm proving a point, which, by the way, I'm not actually proving a point. I'm proving the point.
You are proving a point, but not the one you think.
Right.
You are proving a point. Yeah.
I'm proving the point that I would rather be miserable. Yeah.
Exactly.
And so that's part of just being in integrity with yourself. Is this a situation in which I can continue to be who I am? Yes. Or have I reached the place where me and this situation need to part?
Correct.
And that's okay too. And that's about tolerance. We talked about boundaries really early on in our talking in our Real Talk Sisters, and how important that they are, and knowing within yourself, this is how much I can take, and beyond that, I will lose myself.
Right. And we're unwilling to do that. To do that.
Yes. And
I'm unwilling to do that.
Rather than staying in and losing yourself, draw the boundary and figure out whatever you have to do to keep your own integrity. That's what you do.
Yeah. But I think, part of there's so many pieces, and nothing is simple. Whatever we're talking about, it's not a simple discussion. It's always deep and all that sort of thing. But what's important to me is that I show up as me, not as what you think I should be. Not as because if I live like that, then everywhere I go and everything someone says, every opinion someone has moves me around. It changes me, it shifts me. I'm not on solid ground. If I am anchored in who I am and who I want to, how I want to show up. And one of the questions I continually ask myself all the time, whether I'm in the store or on the freeway, any place that's a consistent aggravation or has a possibility of being a consistent aggravation, the question I ask myself is, what would love do here? What would love do here? How would love show up? What would love be? That's a litmus test for
Well,
me and everybody.
very high bar.
It
So
is.
tolerance is
It
down
is.
here. What would love do is here.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so what are the in-between places? How do you
There's
get
a lot.
here to here? And
Yep.
that's years of spiritual
Mhm.
practice is part of that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Exactly. To me, that's what spiritual practice is to expand your understanding, your vision of you and who you want to be and what's all in between where you are and where you want to go. And how would you do that if you're not asking that question? Back to whoever said that about curiosity. You get curious about you, about who you are. There's some show on television, Ted something, really,
Lasso.
really good. Yeah, Ted Lasso. And he's playing darts, and he's a really great dart player, but nobody knows it. And he said, people think that they look at me and they make assumptions, but if you had gotten curious, you would have asked some questions. And he goes on, I love it. You would have asked this, that, or the other thing. And so I think I don't know what all the stages are, but I think that curiosity is certainly a big one.
I have a friend, I've talked about him before. He was a mentor of mine. He's no longer on this planet, but he was a mentor of mine. And he always liked to tell the story of when he was in ministerial school. And there was a guy in his class that he just couldn't stand. Just like every time the guy opened, and seminary classes are usually pretty small. You're with the
Yes.
same cohort
Yes,
for a
you are.
long time.
Yes, you are.
It's like every time this guy opens his mouth, I just
Cringe. Yes.
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 And
Yes.
and he went to the instructor in the class and said, I don't know what to do. I can't get beyond it. I don't like it in myself. But when that guy opens his mouth, I just feel like ripping my own teeth out. And the instructor,
That's pretty rough.
yeah, told him, I want you to watch him for a week and find something that you like about him. Find
I
something.
love it. I love it.
And he said he went back several weeks like, there ain't nothing. And then the instructor was like, no, the assignment isn't to tell me that you can't. Your assignment is to find something. And finally one day he said, okay, I like his tie. I like his tie. He's got a pretty tie on. And then the instructor said, well, go tell him that.
I love it.
He goes up to the guy
it.
he doesn't like and tells him, I really like your tie. They end up within the next few months becoming close friends, and the friendship lasted 40 years.
And that's something? Isn't that amazing?
Because
it's absolutely amazing.
Just a moment of allowing the heart to open.
Yes.
And once you've allowed the heart to open, there's no telling what floods in,
Exactly. None. And I have such a similar story. So we're going to skip this first break and go into the second, but I have such a great story about the same thing. And then there's a gentleman who I would see him and it would just bug me. He hadn't done anything. I didn't really know him. We worked together, but I didn't know him. And every time I saw him, I just go, and I knew it was me. I didn't even know the guy. There was nothing he could have done that made me think that. So I had to just go, okay, what is happening? What is going on? I just kept asking myself, what are you doing? What's happening? What's going on? And I think I may have shared this with you, but he looked like my father.
Yeah.
He reminded me of my father. And once I understood that, I thought, oh, okay, that's what it is. That's what it is. Not
Yeah.
a thing. And I even told him, and I said, listen, I know you felt some things from me, and I apologize for that. It is not you. It really is not you. And to your point, I started to say, well, he's a hard worker. He takes the kids out. I'm just looking at the things that I did like about him. I didn't realize I was doing that, but you just point that up, and I was doing that. Finally, when I finally recognized, I knew it was me. When I finally recognized why I didn't care for the guy, I thought, well, that's not him. That isn't. He can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just crazy. But again, that point you just made, or Kim just made, about curiosity. I just asked myself, what is going on? What are you doing? Why? Yeah. And so
Well,
I think yeah.
curiosity requires us to be open.
Yes.
It does.
Open-minded, open-hearted, and when we're intolerant, you are closed. I mean, like you said, you had a low bar, and if you're just allowing somebody into the room, but you're not going any further, that's being really closed.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And nothing happens. There's no understanding being closed. You have to open up to understand something. You've got to, because you have to be open to new ideas, new possibilities with someone, more information about them that you didn't have before. Perhaps maybe you get to know why they do what they do, why they believe what they believe, and then you can kind of get with that. And maybe it's not yours, but at least then you can say, oh, I get it now. I get why that's important to you. And I get why you're saying yes to this or no to that. And then be in a whole other place with somebody, because like you said, Pjae, and now I know them differently.
Yes, exactly.
Or I know them.
Yes. Yeah. I didn't know it at all. Right. Yeah, exactly.
You might never reach understanding. Understanding is not necessary for love to take place.
Okay.
I don't know that understanding is necessary. But you still have to, you open your mind and you find out whatever this thing is that I don't understand is not the singular truth of that person. There's also this, and there's this, and there's this, and there's this, and there's this. And then it takes whatever that thing is that you don't understand, takes its proper place in a whole person that is not about this single fact.
Right.
Well,
go ahead.
I walk in my neighborhood, and there aren't very many political signs in this neighborhood. I just moved from another neighborhood where there were lots of political signs, and they were all pretty much ones that agreed with what I would put out if I was going to put out a sign, which I don't. In this neighborhood, there's hardly any political signs. And my husband's like commented on it a lot of times. Nobody puts up signs in this neighborhood. And I said, well, there is one that I walk by every day on my morning walk. And it's one yard, but there's a lot of signs. And they're not that I would. And so I would watch myself every day sort of be triggered. And before that, I would walk by that house. And I love the fact that they had garden. They had a vegetable garden. They were growing trees. They planted a bunch of new trees. And I would have this thought, that's my kind of people, right? They're growing their own food. They're taking care of these trees. They take care of their yard. I like these people. And then I see the signs. Ooh, that's not my kind of people. I don't understand what is going on. And then the other day, the guy was out watering his lawn. And I thought, okay, I have a choice. I can keep walking. I can say good morning.
Keep walking, keep it moving.
Say good morning no matter what. I can say good morning and keep walking, or I can actually engage this person. And so I walked over to him. I didn't engage him about politics, so don't get scared.
No, that's a fight.
How you doing? He said, hi. Oh, hey, I'm fine. Introduced himself. I introduced myself. I said, I'm kind of new in the neighborhood, and I have to tell you, I'm jealous of your garden. Every time I pass by, I think, and so we start talking about tomatoes and peppers and when to plant them and when's the best time and why. And I said, it's hard in this neighborhood because there's so many trees, which is great, but there's so little direct sunlight. Anyway.
Correct.
So we had a whole discussion about this. And he says, yeah, I think I've seen you out. I'm the one that rides that yellow bike. You'll see me in the morning. It's like, yeah, I've passed the guy 50 times. We've greeted each other every time, but I didn't recognize him without his helmet and his day glow.
Right.
And his bicycle, right? So now, are we going to be friends? Probably not. He lives far enough away that I'm not going to, if I'm going to borrow a cup of sugar, I'm not going to go that far, right? But I no longer have that reaction when I walk by his house. I have a reaction of joy. Here's somebody that is politically about as far from me probably as you can get, who, and what that does is it feeds my whole soul about, then I can't just take everybody with that sign and file them under this heading, you know, whatever that heading happens to be. Because here's somebody who is a whole human being that has all kinds of things about him that I identify with, that I maybe don't identify with, but I have respect and honor for, that I like to see. And did it change the guy? Not at all, but it changed me. Just that little bit of openness changed me. And now I don't have that clutching in my stomach every time I walk by the house.
Right. Exactly. I love it. I think it's the time of the year, or the time of the or whatever, that people are having some thoughts about a lot of things. A lot of people being vocal about a lot of things. They're putting out there, this is my side of the story, and all that sort of thing. And certainly, you know, people in my neighborhood have put out signs, and that are not what I would put out. I wouldn't put out any signs though, because it's you know what I mean? Because it's not, I don't need to put it out.
Yeah.
I don't need to announce
anybody's mind. You're not changing anybody's
I'm not going to change anybody's mind. No one's going to change mine. So what do I need to announce it for? I don't. I really feel like I love the way that the U.S. is set up. One man, one woman, one vote. It's my vote. It's your vote. You're going to tell me. I'm going to tell you. So good luck. I mean, good for you. Good for all of us. And that's it. So part of the thing, speaking to what you said, when I first saw the sign, I was like, oh, well, I should put my sign out and counteract. And then I thought, for what? What are you counteracting? What exactly are you counteracting? And I thought, yeah, I never put out signs. Why would I put out a sign? Because he just in response to someone. I'm not going to respond. I don't need to respond. So, you know, again, back to being, not allowing someone else's behavior to dictate mine. I'm not going to do it. I'm not free if I do that.
And nor do we have to condemn them for their behavior.
Exactly. I don't have to, because I actually do care for these people.
Do that without saying,
and I'm you're do it.
Doing it.
I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to say, you know, hey, you have a right to think the way you think, and so do I. And so that's what we do here. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's important that we realize that we are all multifaceted individuals.
Yes.
We're all very complicated. And I think when we make one thing about a person so big and let it obliterate everything else that is them, then we do ourselves a disservice and we do them a disservice.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And I remember once I chose a quote to have on the screen when I was doing my Sunday talk. And it was a very good quote. And I looked up the person briefly, and so I kind of had a tiny bit of information about them. But I had somebody after service raise an objection about it. And he came to me and he said, do you know who that person is who said that quote? And he gave me this long history of who they were and how heinous they were and everything else. And I said, and yet, they came up with that very valuable quote.
Okay.
And everybody's complicated. In fact, I'm complicated, and so are you.
And so are you. Correct.
We're all multifaceted. And so, yes, there's one gem. Maybe he has many gems, many quotes that he has that are very good.
Yeah.
That was very valuable and impactful for everybody in the room. And why condemn him and throw the baby out with the bathwater? Because he's complicated, and there are some things about his life that you don't like.
Cancel culture is what's that thing that's happening. Is like, because I now know this thing about you, every other thing I ever knew about you is now null and void. Everything that I ever enjoyed that you if you're talking about an artist, every bit of your art that I ever enjoyed, now, nope, not allowed to enjoy it anymore. Taking those paintings off my wall. Now I know this about you. And that's just, we're more than that. And I'm not saying that there aren't acts that humans do against other humans that are intolerable, that we shouldn't tolerate, that we
absolutely not
in our power.
Something about
happening. But that doesn't mean the person then should be null and void.
Yeah.
And that, like, like we were saying, that if you take one fact about somebody and make that their whole truth, that is, I don't know how much more dangerous you can get than that.
It's really crazy. And the fact that not only are we multifaceted, we're ever expanding. So who I was 5 years ago, don't hold me to that.
Or 5 minutes ago.
Hello, don't hold me to that. I'm constantly growing, learning, changing, deciding, being awakened. We all are. We all are. So my God, if I was held to some things I did some years ago, oh my stars.
Yeah.
Oh my stars. So exactly. So we all deserve that forgiveness. And instead of you forgiven, just let it go. It's just a piece. Like I love that whole multi-factor. It's just a piece. It's not the whole. It's a small piece.
I was watching a documentary about persons on death row. And this one gentleman was saying he had committed a very heinous crime. I think he had murdered a family. And he said for 20 years, he denied committing the crime because he just could not face the fact that he had done that. He just could not handle it mentally or emotionally. So he denied it for 20 years. And he said, I do need to be here in prison. But he said, as I grow and evolve, as I change and I am expanding, and I have now accepted that I did what I did, and I am asking for forgiveness from myself every single day. And I'm asking forgiveness from God every single day. And I think he had even written letters of trying to make atonement towards relatives, friends, and loved ones of this family. And he said a very important thing. He said, what if we were all judged by our worst moment or our worst day?
Yeah.
Yes.
And that does not negate the fact that we are all to be treasured, that we are all important, and we all do things we are not proud of. He said, I'll be atoning for this the rest of my days.
Yes.
And he said, I'm on death row. My days are short. But he said, I hope that people will look at me now and see more than my crime. He said, because I know I'm more than my crime.
And we all
I love it.
We all
are. Yes,
none of
we
us
all
can
are
be categorized according to our
worst
basic
day.
act, our worst
Exactly.
day.
Our worst instincts.
That
Exactly.
often. What if we
I
were
love
judged
that.
by our worst moment?
I don't even want to be judged for like my worst 30%.
Yeah, I don't. I don't like to even look at the worst day. I like to just let that go. Just, you know what? Just move forward. Stop looking backwards and just keep moving forward and growing and, and loving. And so, so to put in front of me my highest ideal, which I'm not going to reach, but I have it in front of me all the time. And everything that I try to do it from that highest ideal place. I miss the mark pretty much all the time, but that's okay. Still going for it. And that's a choice. We don't make choices. That's a choice that we make, but not everybody chooses. Some people just live by default, as if that's all there is, as if you can't decide to be something more, different, greater, whatever. It's a comfortable place. It's what we know. It's how we were raised, or whatever it is. It's what I know. It's what worked for me. Say again.
It's what our culture tells us.
It's what our culture tells us, what the collective tells us, whatever, however that's in our head. And so we don't take just a moment to think, is that what I want? Could I possibly change that? That is empowering. That's empowering, personally empowering. So I don't know.
Shall we take a break now and come back?
I think we could do that. Yeah.
We're back. We're not.
And so we're gonna have a double break because we missed the first one.
So maybe in our last 20 minutes get to what? Steps to love, moving away from just tolerance.
You know,
Well, one of the
namaste,
Mm.
that the divine in me greets the divine in you. Just holding the thought, whether we can see it or not, whether we believe it in the moment or not, holding the thought, you are just as divine as I am. You are just as divine as I am. You carry the spark of divinity within you just as I do. I don't have to understand it. I don't have to even see it. I just have to hold the thought that it's there, and that automatically opens me up. That's one.
So I think maybe the first step could be even before that, is that you have to recognize yourself as divine.
Yeah.
If you're in intolerance or intolerance, then you are certainly not seeing or feeling or embracing your divinity.
Yeah.
And then you can acknowledge the other.
Right.
Well, let me just say this. Let me say this before, because that's a high bar. That's a high thing to even recognize you're the divine or anyone else. And so just working, because I came out of the youth authority, working with young people who had committed crimes, some heinous things, and just working with them all the time to not to change who they are or anything, but just to let in some light as to what was possible, because I knew that they were behaving the way that they saw other people behave, how they saw other people get ahead, make some money, whatever. And so one of the things that I would suggest, and that actually happened to me. That's the reason why I suggested it. So let me go back to what happened to me. So living in the military, I'm around military people. I'm thinking everybody's green, everybody lives this way. And when I left from my father, and moved by myself when I was 17 years old, I moved to LA in the middle of Compton. I had never heard of a gang. I only heard about West Side Story. So when people were telling me there are gangs, and I honestly thought, you've been watching too much television.
You expected them to sing and dance.
I said, you have been watching too much television. That is not going on. And then I moved right across the street from a place that was a halfway house for juveniles. I bring that up to say this. I saw the worst in them and the best in them. I saw the absolute opposites of them getting into gang fights, wanting to shoot one another, fighting on their lawns, to watching my daughter coming to my wedding, wanting to know how do you speak this way, how do you actually asking curious questions. So it was just so from that, what I came to when I was dealing with them is to just to talk to them about visiting other places. Just step outside. You don't have to step outside to a whole other city. Step outside your neighborhood, and not to a neighborhood that's an opposite gang, to another neighborhood that doesn't know anything about your gang, doesn't know anything about. Just go to a restaurant. Just go and be in a whole other area that doesn't know anything about what you do, so you can see something different. That's what I had people that lived. I'm not kidding. 5 blocks from the ocean and had never seen it. 5 blocks in Long Beach and had never been to the water. And so I think, go to the water, see something outside of what you normally see, and see that the world is bigger than the one you're living in. That was the beginning. That was the beginning of opening some eyes, my own eyes, as well as theirs. So that's, seeing the divine is a long way for a lot of people. But just seeing something different, seeing somebody else that's not like you, being around them for a minute and see what you see. That somebody can do.
Would you call that being curious about yourself and others, or about the world?
I think it would be being curious about the world, knowing that there's more than what you know. There's more than what you've seen.
It's about opening. Go ahead.
And that we can be more in the moment, I think, because if you're not willing to be that, if you don't know that about yourself, if you just say, I'm this way, I believe this, I see these people this way, or I see the world this way, and then all of a sudden you can open up a little bit and say, oh, maybe I'm not just that.
Yes.
It's about imagination. If you can't imagine anything different or better, then how are you
Yes.
going to get anything different or better? That's
You
like
can't.
basic new thought.
It
We
is.
structure it in a certain way, but really you open their imaginations. They can
Right.
imagine people have a different way of relating than the
Right.
one that they're used to. There's a
Right.
different way of sitting across a table and talking to someone. There's a different
Exactly.
vista in front of you
Yeah.
than
Yeah,
what
there
you've
is. Right. And
Okay.
one of the questions that I'm learning to ask, well, people say, well, that can't happen. What if it could? Just to say whatever they're saying can't or won't or whatever. What if it could? That opens somebody's imagination. What if you could? What if it was different? What if that's not the whole truth? Just not sharing them what the truth is, just asking them. That's
What
a
if-
way to get people to get curious. What if? Just asking what if questions. What if there was more? What would happen then? Yeah.
about
And so
what if I'm wrong about that? What if
what if
I'm
I'm
wrong?
wrong about that? What
I
if
could be
I'm wrong?
Mhm.
Right. Right. What if I'm wrong? Yeah. hmm Where does that information come from? What
That's a
makes me think that? Yeah.
very
These are, again,
important.
all curious questions. All curious questions. Yeah. Mhm.
And an important question, I think, is also what could I possibly learn from this, from
Yeah.
them, from the people I have grouped into this other category?
Right.
What if I can learn something
Right.
that will benefit me in my life?
Yeah. And what I have found really really interesting, and I was one of the I said this for like more than 20 years. What if I say something or someone says something about a group they don't know jack about? They have had no experience with this group. They don't know anyone from this group, and yet they got all kinds of thoughts about this group. So when my ex-husband was wanting me to go to Vietnam, why would I want to go? It's a war-torn country. They hate us. You, what? Are you kidding? Just because we went to war, and we didn't go to war for the whole country. We only went to war with half the country. The other half the country went to war with. So, so going over there completely changed my mind about a mind I had set with no information
Or with
whatsoever
only in the information of being the daughter of an army.
of an army person who went to war. Yes, correct. That's the only information that I had. I didn't know any Vietnamese personally. I had not visited the country. Nothing. I had no real information. And yet I had all these opinions.
It's easier to have an opinion when you have no information.
Isn't it? Isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So easy. So fake, so false. but easy.
Curiosity.
Yes. So I think I love that. I think that seems to be the number one answer is to be curious about so many things, yourself included. Be curious.
What
I
if
love
was
it.
wrong? What if there is a
What-
different way to look at it? What if there's more
What
to
if-
that than what I see?
What if they're right?
They're
What if
right.
they're right?
They could be.
They could be right. What if they're
this
right?
is a gray area and we're both right about some things?
Yes.
And what could happen if we came together and took what's
And explored.
valuable
Mm-hmm.
and positive,
Yes.
or that could possibly be a solution, but it's
Yes.
not just the one answer. Maybe what if we all came together and integrated the best of each?
Yes.
And
What
that's
if?
the way our political system is supposed to work, and the way that it's not working lately is that each side is so entrenched that they've forgotten that there's only one side. There's only one side that should be happening, the side
Yeah. And that's the people.
of us.
Of us, the people. All
Yeah.
of us. What works best for all of us.
What works best for all of us. And
Right.
that but I might have to lose something. I might have to lose something, but I'm right.
Yeah.
But we're all a little bit right, and we're all a little bit
Well,
wrong.
a little bit wrong. Yeah.
All of us. All of
Yes.
us. So what if we came together and we looked at all the things that were right
Right.
and went that way instead of having to like prove authorship of it? Because what
Yeah.
we see and what we do, it's human nature, and we see it played out on a big stage, is if I disagree with you, then even when you do something good, I don't want to give you credit for that.
I don't want to acknowledge that.
I don't want to know it. I don't want to know it. We do that. And
We do.
you know what? Give people their props. That's a
Right.
huge thing that you can do is go,
It
okay,
really is.
anything else he says, but he said this one thing, and I
Right.
got to give him
That
props
was
for that.
correct.
He helped this
I
one.
remember. What, I'm sorry. What
No,
you gonna say,
just
Emily?
if they helped one person, if they did one
Exactly.
thing that was right, go ahead
Yeah.
and allow. Just opening your heart enough to say, yes, that was good and that was right.
Yeah.
Opening your heart that much can make a
I
huge.
remember. Yes, I remember this, and I may have shared this guys with you because it was a big deal for me. With this woman, she was a speaker, and I had gone to a women's luncheon thing, and she was a speaker. She's a great speaker, but she said that when someone asks a question or makes a statement, you don't have to answer right away. In fact, it's best not that you don't. Just think about it. And I just got all riled up about it. I thought that's bullshit. I'm sorry. If someone says something, you respond. If you say something, I just say you say something, I say something. So I got in line. There's a whole line to speak with her. And I said, that doesn't even make any sense. How would that work? And she said, well, how do you think it would work? I mean, she talked.
She
And
paused. She didn't respond
paused.
right
She
away.
did not. She did not.
She put it back on you.
She did. She did. And I thought, well, that worked. There was no problem there. So yeah, but I mean, I was fired up. Like, that is crazy. And I confronted her, and the very thing she did showed me she was right. I thought, well, so I just been rushing into answers without really even thinking about the thing someone has said. I just rushed to speak. We all rush to speak when really, just give it a second. Just give it a moment. You don't have to, just because somebody says something doesn't mean you got to answer right away. You can even say that. When we think about that for a second.
It's because
You can
somebody
say
throws
that.
a rope in your yard doesn't mean you have to pick up the other end.
Hello.
You don't pick up the end. There's no tug of war. It doesn't exist.
I
So
love
the-
it. I
Pick
love
up the
that.
other end. Yeah.
I love
Well,
that.
you have to learn to respond and not react. And it does require that you step back for a minute, take a breath,
It does.
and maybe think about something, take it in. And I don't always have a response right away. And I used to think that I had to react and say something immediately. And it
Immediately.
really is a valuable thing if you can just stop for a few minutes and say, well, maybe I have to think about that. I don't have any.
Let me just give me a minute. Just give me a minute.
Right?
I'll
All
get
I
back to
know
you.
is how I feel, but that may have nothing to do with what I think is the right answer.
Exactly.
And sometimes I think our feelings are high. There's a lot of hype these days, and a lot of us are running on our feelings. And that may be separate from what I believe.
Right. I love it. Yeah. It may not be aligned in the moment with how I actually feel about it.
Yeah, we're all just waiting to duke it out. You know, that somebody says something, you think, oh my God, I got to hit back. Got to hit back. And here we are, boxers in the ring again on opposite sides, thinking when you say something about what you believe, that I have to punch you back. You take their remark as a hit. It's not a hit. They're just saying what they believe.
It's a hit if you think it is. You know, it's your thought that says it's a hit. You can think another thought.
Hence our previous show, if you felt it, you dealt it. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Correct.
To be clear, we're not saying that when something that is obviously harmful to other people or that is wrong or harmful to you or harmful to is going on, that you have to tolerate it or love it. Right? Just want to make sure.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. No, we're not saying that.
That's not what we're saying. But we're saying anything that goes on. Yeah, if it's something that is wrong, then do what is yours to do to change it. Always do what is yours to do to change it. But spouting off and hating somebody, neither of those things actually changes anything.
It doesn't do anything.
If it changes it by making it worse, not by making it better. And so we get to that. Maybe first we start asking questions. That's a really good place to start.
It's such a great place to start. And the first question would be, I'm sorry.
How did this get to be this way in the first place?
Right.
What precipitated this? Maybe the thing that I'm really heavily criticizing used to be 1,000 times worse until people worked their asses off to get it as good as it is now.
Correct.
And
exactly.
Stepping in with my big cloddy boots going, this is wrong, I can find out a little more about it and say, how can I help?
Right. How can I help?
Yeah.
What are my real thoughts about this? What am I I know I jumped into it, but really, what do I care about this? Why has this got me going? what's going on? Back to
What's it
curiosity. What's going on here? Yeah, what's going on here? Because that's what you have. That's what you have control over. Your own thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do I want to be a part of the solution, or do I want to be a part of the problem?
Right.
But that takes getting, again, curious about ourselves.
Yeah.
And really being honest with ourselves about where we are. Are we are we just tolerating something, or are we really endeavoring to love? It's a, this is a journey from tolerance to love, and it can be a very long journey. It can be very arduous and circuitous. And I think we have to make a decision to stay on the path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. And even if we step to the side, step off for a second, just get back on it once you notice you're off. It's okay. We're still human beings. We're not going to go a straight and narrow path. It's not going to happen that way. It's going to zigzag and back up and do all kinds of things. But
I wish
it's
there was
awareness.
That were straight and narrow. There's not. At least I
There's
haven't
not
found
one. It's not happening. It's not happening. Mm-mm. So just, stay on the path. Wherever it goes, just stay on the path and know where you're at on it and what's yours to do here. Yeah.
The mission statement for Global Truth Center in California is love only, forgive everything, remember who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I had thought about that a lot since I heard somebody first say that.
Yep.
And that is a high bar. Love only, forgive everything.
Mm-hmm. Remember who you are. It's a high bar.
And yet, if we can get there, if we keep shooting for that, then I think we can all get to a much better place, have more peaceful lives, have more understanding in the world, and have a bar that's much higher than tolerance.
Yeah.
And stop duking it out with each other. The other thing I heard that I think is valuable is that you assume good intentions until proven otherwise.
Yes, I love it.
I think we live the opposite now, many of us do, where we assume bad intentions, or we assume that what we're looking at or what we're hearing is hateful and heinous.
As Don Miguel Ruiz says, you're making up a story anyway. There's no way you can have all the information. So you're always making up a story. So why make up the ugliest story possible?
Yeah, make up a good one.
Why don't you make up a good story? Why don't you make up a story that makes you happy and empowers you and empowers other people?
Exactly. How about that?
Yeah.
How about that?
Last thoughts in our last 3 minutes, or last 1.5.
Well, I will say that having a snappy comeback, which has become in a lot of ways in our culture like the thing to do on social media.
It really has. It really has.
It is about the lowest bar possible.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not about the snappy comeback. Sometimes we congratulate ourselves that, I showed them. No, you didn't. You showed them your ass.
Yeah, you did show them. Yeah, that's what you showed them. That's what you showed them. Mm-hmm.
But you didn't change minds, because you're never going to change a mind by telling somebody you're an idiot. You'll only change your mind by showing somebody something that they haven't seen before, and only if it's something they're willing to look at. And so if you show them beauty, if you show them love, if you show them forgiveness, if you show them tolerance, if you show them openness, if you show them curiosity, then there is the possibility that things can change.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I just say ditto to that. That's my final thought.
Right, exactly. I think we've kind of gone over everything. I love the idea, and I think you just summed it up as well, Melinda. Just be curious. Just be curious about everything, about what I'm talking about, what I'm saying. Why do I believe this? What's going on here? I love to ask that question when I see somebody. I go, talk to you about this. What's going on here? What are you doing? Why are you guys here? I love that question, and people love to talk about themselves. Oh, well, this is what we're doing. Let me share. Please do. What's going on? Yeah, I really do love to ask that question.
What's going on here? Why am I here? What am I doing?
What's going on? Right. Really. What are you talking about? Why does this matter to you? Yeah, you could ask yourself those questions too.
Why are you talking?
What is the hope? Right here.
Yes.
So we are on realtalksisters.com. You can email us at realtalksisters@gmail.com if you have show suggestions or questions or anything else. And it's always a pleasure to be here, isn't it, ladies?
And our
It
lovely
is.
Zoe Morrow has his show this Saturday, right? The first
Mhm.
Saturday, and Zoe it is. So please tune. There you go. There it is. Stories of Truth. Oh, TT, the three triple
Tim, you're
T.
going to be the next guest. Is that correct?
That's
That is
right.
correct.
Yeah.
Woohoo! Yay!
So you get a Real Talk sister. All right.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for being with us today. It's been a lovely, lovely conversation. I love you. Mwah.
See you next week.
All right.